I don't think I agree with that. I mean, you need to keep the concept in mind. And given that, I think it was done really well.
Nah, I got your point on concept, but I think the very concept lost its grip in the story, Nandini.
No, but.
Yeah,
Fine, let's just let our listeners decide.
hey, hey, for our new and returning listeners, before you get to investigate the reason for our little argument, we welcome you to the second episode of Oops, We Binged It Again, the podcast where streaming meets cross generational chaos. For those who do not know us, I'm your Gen X host Mukta, joined by my Gen Z counterpart and daughter Nandini. Together, we will share with you honest, again spoiler free takes from the many series and movies we have binged, making sure you get to spend less time scrolling, a lot of time streaming.
Yes, and we decided to keep our episodes short and sweet so that you get a better review of a series compared to what you would read online. We also dive much deeper into the series so that you get a better understanding of whether the series is even worth your while. Oh, and the best part? You will hear from two different generations who sometimes agree and more often than not agree to disagree.
Same old, same old. So, listeners, it is time for our much anticipated Giggle Spence
Oh
review.
my god. And if you're wondering what Gigglespense means, you might want to check out our previous episode where we coined that term.
We? Excuse me, that was me.
Fine, credit where credit is due. It was my mum's way of describing shows that blend humor with a bit of suspense.
So, listeners, diving into The Residence. This week's Netflix series has been making waves, securing a spot in the platform's top 10 globally.
Yes, The Residence has one season, 8 episodes, each about an hour. I know that's long, but stay with me. It features a stellar cast. Uzo Aduba leads as the eccentric detective Cordelia Cupp. You'll also recognize Randall Park and even a cameo by Kylie Minogue. That's a rich cast. And for fans of Bridgerton like me, this series comes from Shondaland, the same production house behind that Regency era hit. So, without further ado, let's delve into the mystery and see if this Giggle Spence lives up to the hype.
Uh huh. But before we unravel the details of The Residence, we're going to do our classic. Describe it in one phrase. I'll go first this time. Who's lying?
And I'll finish that with who isn't? Because seriously, that's the energy this show runs on.
Exactly. From the first 10 minutes, you know you're not just watching a who done it, you're watching a who done it, where everyone had motive, means, and the attitude.
Yes, so here's the setup. The Residence is a murder mystery with a very unique backdrop. America's most iconic home, the White House. One minute, you're at a fancy state dinner, and the next, the chief usher, A.B. Winter, is dead. His murder investigation is underway, and 150 plus potential suspects are trapped under this very historic roof.
And who steps in? Not the FBI, not the Secret Service, but Cordelia Cupp, a quirky, sharp, completely unorthodox investigator with a very specific set of rules and absolute zero tolerance for nonsense. She's tasked with navigating this maze of power, politics, and a lot of personal drama to find the killer.
So the Residence kicks off not with a murder scene, not even a flashback, but with a congressional committee hearing, which, let me tell you, was a brilliant storytelling device. Honestly, when I saw a congressional committee, I thought it'd be all boring suits and legal talk, but it was so snappy and honestly, really hilarious. You get all of the exposition without anyone lecturing you.
Uh huh, Nandini. Why do I think that was aimed at me? Ah.
Maybe.
Uh huh. And then the back and forth in the committee, listeners, it was so effective. You watching all these widely different characters being questioned, each of them revealing just enough and helping you actually understand the inner workings of the White House staff. For me, revealing enough.
Ah, yes, the slow paced explanation was incredible. Like, literally, Mum, I remember this one scene. I turned to you and I was like, wait, what even is an usher?
And just as I was about to explain, one of the committee members goes, "So, what is the role of an usher exactly?" The timing was perfect.
What we're trying to say is the show just makes it really easy to follow. You don't have to stare at the screen the whole time because it's written in a way that pulls you in without overwhelming you.
And then enter Cordelia Cupp.
Oh, absolutely a literal queen. I loved her throughout this series.
Yeah, a woman of color commanding the room with absolute authority. What I personally admired is how she dominates the scenes without ever raising her voice. It's quiet power, calculated, composed, and deeply magnetic.
Ah, yeah, magnetic indeed. I mean, everyone else, you have politicians, you have staff, and the Secret Service you mentioned, they kind of just fade out when she walks in.
Oh, they do.
I barely noticed or even remember their names or who they were, even though the show clearly described their roles and their names.
And then there's a clear motif running through the show. What did they say? What did they call it? A bit of zoomorphism.
Oh, wow, that word is impressive.
Nandini, somehow I thought that was more of you being sarcastic with me. But anyway, thank you. Let me go back a few years to my college days. Zoomorphism is when human traits are described or compared through animal imagery. So, for instance, I remember the scene where Cordelia compares herself to a falcon, explaining how sharply falcons can scan a flock and pinpoint the weakest prey. Now, this was a powerful metaphor for her ability to sift through numerous suspects and still be able to zero in on the culprit. So, you actually see a falcon in the final scene soaring above the White House. Remember, Nandini? That visually ties her character to the bird.
Yes, that was an excellent portrayal. And I agree. I think one of the most intriguing aspects of the show was that Cordelia's passion for birdwatching, that's not just a quirky character trait. It's integral to her investigative approach. And if you remember, she often draws parallels between bird behaviors and human actions, and that adds such a unique layer to storytelling. Do you remember this one scene where Cordelia discusses this bird, Malaysian rail babbler?
Rail babbler it was.
She describes it as a bird that's notoriously elusive with a call that seems to come from nowhere. And she very intelligently uses this analogy to illustrate how some of these suspects that we encounter, they are like the rail babbler. Present, yet their true intentions and actions are very hard to pinpoint. It's such a brilliant metaphor for the deceptive appearances and hidden motives that she encounters during her investigation.
I cannot agree more. Of all the series we've watched, listeners, this is perhaps the only one where we've seen such an intelligent characterization. So, speaking of characters, the series gives us the chief usher, A.B. Winter, at the center of the murder mystery. But I have to say, the man comes off cold and insensitive. He's all about protocol over people. For instance, if you remember Nandini, when the White House engineer Bruce finally fixed the president's shower after much effort, AB's response was just focus on the next problem. Zero gratitude. No wonder some staffers found him unfeeling.
Yeah, I see what you mean, but I saw AB differently. To me, he was assertive and all business, sure, but there was a soft heart under that tux. I think he ran a tight ship just because he had to. And we do get a peek at his vulnerable side in the tail end of the series. There's such a touching flashback of AB playing backgammon with young staffer Angie, I think her name was, and you actually see him choke up.
I remember that.
That scene, if you remember, shows a lonely man beneath all this formal facade, not just a cold bureaucrat.
Still, throughout the series, AB is portrayed as a perfectionist who can be insensitive. And let's not forget, he locked horns with nearly everyone on the night of the murder, from the staff to the guests. So, Nandini, when half the White House has had an ugly encounter with you in just one night, it doesn't really scream sweet, softy.
I agree, but then I'd argue AB's tough exterior was part of his job, like I said. He kept the White House machinery running, and sometimes I'm sure you'd agree that meant stepping on toes. Deep down, though, he cared. He cared about the institution, about doing things right. So, listeners, while Mum sees a curt taskmaster, I see a guarded veteran with a hint of a soul. As assertive as he was, he had his private moments of kindness and pain that did make him more human, but those moments and that side of him was just not shown to everyone else.
Fair enough, fair enough. But for most of the series, I will still say he comes across as controlling and sometimes even dismissive.
Okay, I tried my best to convince her, guys. She's not convinced.
No, let me give you another example. Especially with Jasmine Haney, the vice usher. She thought she'd be stepping into his shoes soon because he had promised to retire. And then he just changes his mind without a proper conversation. Now, in the first few episodes, you can feel her tension. She is bitter even when she tries to stay professional.
That I agree, yes. But staying on characters, we also meet Trip Morgan.
The best.
He was the president's brother, who basically was the wild card of the White House. He treated the White House like some sort of luxury hotel that we'd all love living in.
Guys, letting you on a little secret. We thought, both of us thought initially that he was Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah, oh my god, he looked a lot like Ryan Reynolds. And then we searched him up. I was like, oh, Ryan Reynolds is in this series. And then only to find out it wasn't. And I was like, oh, never mind. But yeah, throughout the series, Trip is doing these funny things like wandering around in a bathrobe, being convinced he's watched, and even stealing things from the White House, like toilet papers.
He is truly ridiculous. But I must say, it also adds to the confusion in the series. Now you start wondering, is he just eccentric or is he hiding something behind that clueless exterior?
Yes, and oh, let's not forget Diddier, the very dramatic French chef. I think episode 4 and 5 both give us the full meltdown when A.B. Winter decides Didier's elaborate gingerbread White House just isn't good enough for the main display room. At that time, if you remember, you can see Diddier is heartbroken. I mean, we nearly teared up for him.
Oh, we did, I must say.
But also, if you remember, he reacts in an interesting way that suddenly makes him a suspect too. And I like that balance between comedy and suspicion.
Exactly. And then there is Harry Hollinger again, another funny character. The president's advisor and the oldest friend. From the beginning, he feels like someone who knows a lot more than he is letting on. He's loud, opinionated, and he keeps hovering around places he should not.
Yeah, and so what we're trying to say overall is nearly everyone, and I mean everyone, had some sort of conflict with A.B. Winter. And I think that's what makes the series work so well. It's a house full of personalities, grudges, and a lot of resentment. And all of them, in one way or another, make sense as suspects.
And because the show gives you just enough backstory, it always keeps you guessing, but never lost. It's smart, very layered, and surprisingly funny in the right places.
Yeah, it's that mix of character-driven tension and very clever writing that pulls you in. And now, let's just say things only get more interesting from here.
So, listeners, you must wonder, then where and what is the story? Well, every character is the story. That's what is so clever about the series The Residents. There is no traditional plot, beyond the fact that A.B. Winter is dead.
Yeah, that's honestly really all there is. From that moment on, the series dives into personalities, into the different dynamics, and everyone's unique experience with AB, both before as well as on the night of the murder.
And cleverly, that structure works. But still to an extent. It starts really well. Nandini, as you said, snappy. I say smart and also unexpectedly funny. I did not expect a murder thriller to be so funny. But I have to say, by episode 7, we were still stuck in interviews, interrogation, just talking. No real clarity, no major shift. So I remember I had started pulling away a bit. I felt like we were back to where we'd started. To me, it felt like all over the place, just unable to connect any dots. And I found myself jumping from one suspect to another.
Yeah, see, I didn't mind that at all. I definitely agree with you, the space slowed down in the middle, but I think that actually helped build the full picture. You needed that time with each character to really piece together what happened that night. And if you remember, when they all come together in the final episode, every single suspect in one room, it does feel worth it.
Yeah, I'll give the ending that for sure. The final gathering felt like a page out of an Agatha Christie novel. Me, an ardent fan, to me it was like a deja vu. One room, everyone present, and the detective lays it all out, the big reveal. But personally, it was satisfying. But I do think the show could have done a little more to keep the thrill alive in the middle of it. After all, it's a murder mystery, and while the comedy was brilliant, the suspense and the thrill kind of took a backseat for a bit.
That's fair. I understand where you're coming from. But maybe that's what makes this a Giggle Spence and not just another thriller. And honestly, it worries me that that word is growing on me.
Finally.
So the Residence, it gives you tension, but it also gives you the time to laugh and observe. So I think it's more character driven than clue driven, if you agree.
So, okay, rather than asking who the series is for, we'll ask when should you watch it? Honestly, listeners, this is one of those light-hearted thrillers that you can easily watch on your way to work or school in the train. It's very engaging, but never too intense.
Absolutely. Even after work or school, it's a fabulous pick. It's got enough mystery to keep you curious, but like we said, the comedy, it balances it all out. So you don't really feel drained or stressed after watching it. In fact, I think you'll probably end up having a really relaxed evening.
I agree. So let's talk about the rating now. So rating wise, if you would have asked me in the beginning, I would have given it a solid 10 without a second thought. But now after the full arc, I would fall to somewhere between a 7 and an 8, I believe.
Yeah, I think finally I agree with you. I also will give it a solid 8 and also would have given it a 10 in the beginning. I think the pacing is slow in places. I like that personally, but I can understand why that might be, dragging away from the thrill a bit. But the characters, the humor, and the final payoff, I think was quite worth it. So if you enjoyed diving into this week's The Residence with us,
And are preparing to watch Residence next.
next week we're stepping away from murder, mayhem, and suspect.
Diving straight into wigs, one-liners, and more sass than the entire White House staff combined.
We're reviewing a movie series that's loud, chaotic, completely
I
unfiltered.
just cannot wait. Absolutely. You will laugh, you will cringe, and someone will definitely threaten to call Jesus.
So if you're ready to swap clues for cackles, don't miss our next episode.
And until then, listeners, as we always say, keep watching, keep wondering, stay curious.
And maybe keep your gingerbread houses away from angry chefs.